What if I told you that speaking more than one language doesn't just change the way you talk, it actually changes the way you think? And no, this isn't just about being able to order coffee in two countries. Psychology shows that multilingual people often share some surprisingly rare traits that quietly shape their personality, decision-making, and even their emotions. So, if you speak more than one language, or you're learning one, you might recognize yourself in these. Let's dive in. First, they have stronger mental flexibility. When you switch between languages, your brain doesn't just translate, it actually shifts systems. Imagine constantly changing the rules of grammar, pronunciation, and even cultural tone without pressing a reset button. That mental workout builds cognitive flexibility. In simple terms, multilingual people are usually better at adapting. If a plan changes suddenly, they don't freeze, they pivot. Their brain is used to switching tracks mid-conversation. It's like having a mental remote control with a very fast input button. Second, they're better at understanding other perspectives. Language isn't just vocabulary, it carries culture, humor, emotion, and social rules. When you speak multiple languages, you naturally absorb different ways of seeing the world. For example, some languages are very direct, others are more subtle and polite. Switching between them teaches you when to be blunt and when to be gentle. Over time, this builds empathy. You start thinking, maybe they didn't mean it that way, instead of jumping to conclusions. That's not just being nice, that's psychological perspective taking. Third, they tend to have stronger problem-solving skills. Studies suggest that multilingual people are often better at filtering out irrelevant information. Why? Because when you speak multiple languages, your brain constantly ignores one language while using another. That's serious mental discipline. It's like being at a loud party and still focusing on the one friend who's telling you something important. That skill transfers into everyday life, from work decisions to creative thinking. Fourth, they show higher emotional awareness. Here's something fascinating. Many bilingual people report feeling slightly different emotions depending on the language they use. You might feel more expressive in one language and more logical in another. Some even say saying "I love you" feels heavier in one language than the other. Psychologists believe this happens because language is deeply tied to memory and context. If you learned one language at home and another at school, your emotional associations differ. Over time, this builds emotional intelligence. You become more aware of how words affect feelings. Fifth, they are often more culturally open-minded. When you understand another language, you automatically understand pieces of another culture. Jokes, idioms, traditions, they start making sense instead of sounding strange. That exposure reduces rigid thinking. Multilingual individuals are generally more comfortable with diversity. New food, new customs, different social rules. Instead of reacting with, "That's weird," they're more likely to think, "Interesting, tell me more." And in today's connected world, that openness is rare. Sixth, they develop stronger listening skills. When you're speaking in a non-native language, you listen carefully. You pay attention to tone, context, and subtle clues. You can't rely on autopilot. Over time, this sharpens active listening. Multilingual people often become better conversationalists, not because they talk more, but because they actually hear more. And let's be honest, in a world where everyone's waiting for their turn to speak, that's a superpower. Seventh, and this one surprises people, they often have a stronger sense of identity. Switching languages can feel like switching versions of yourself. You might be more formal in one language and more playful in another. Instead of being confusing, this often leads to deeper self-awareness. You begin to realize that identity isn't fixed, it's layered, and understanding those layers can make you more confident in who you are. Now, here's the important part. These traits don't appear because multilingual people are born different. They develop because the brain adapts to the challenge of handling multiple systems at once.
It's mental cross-training. So if you've ever struggled to remember a word in the right language or accidentally mixed two languages in one sentence, don't worry. That little brain glitch is actually proof your brain is working hard behind the scenes. And if you only speak one language right now, the good news is your brain can build these traits too. Learning even basic phrases in another language starts activating these mental benefits. In the end, speaking more than one language isn't just about communication. It's about flexibility. It's about empathy. It's about seeing the world through more than one lens. And maybe that's the real superpower. So tell me, do you feel like a slightly different person when you switch languages? Or are you thinking about learning one now? Either way, your brain is more powerful than you think.